All right. So there we go. All right. So without further ado, so we have two of our great delegates, and we have Delegate Patrick Hope and Delegate Alfonso Lopez with us tonight. We also have Senator Barbara Favola. I'm so happy they're able to make time with us after a special session even in Richmond. So I hope that was a very special session for you all. But anyway, so we're gonna let each of them, give us some updates, maybe about 10 minutes each, and then we will have questions and answer time. If you want to type your question in the chat, I will be sure to read it out at the end. Or of course, we can also call on people to do their questions out loud. So anyway, I cannot find the actual agenda I sent you guys, but I believe that I had Patrick going first. Does that sound right?
If you say so. I don't recall seeing an agenda. So
all right,
we'll start with that.
It was a very short agenda.
It's apropos to start with that People's House anyway, over that other body whose name will not pass my lips. We're not allowed to say that.
I could not agree with you more.
So I won't take the full 10 minutes because I think Alfonso and I could probably tag team, what's happened in the House. But I also want to allow enough time for questions, as I know that people have other places to be. But this was our 60-day session, and we have sort of a new boss that we've got for the governor, and it's sort of a big change in Virginia with a Republican governor after having Democratic governors for the last 8 years. And so that's a big change. And it's not just in the governor's mansion, but you see it through all his appointees and his secretariats. And it can have some major change, even the laws, especially given that the Senate is still Democratic. He still can get a lot of things done administratively that we all need to watch and be careful of. He just announced yesterday his parole board appointees, which I think one of the things you can assure, even though there's not parole for people that are currently incarcerated, but people ban of the parole, the 1994 era, 93, 94 era, you can just bet that those people that he selected are going to be very choosy about how many people become eligible for parole. So those kinds of things are very concerning to us. And the House side, sort of the real thing that's right in front of you, is going from the majority to the minority, is a big change in the House. And I won't go into too many details because maybe we can do that during the Q&A. But the budget is the big stickler, and I think that I think it's safe to say, without getting into too many details, we much prefer the Senate version between the budgets. The House budget has a heavy, and the standard deduction is a big one that
Can't hear you, Patrick.
$1 billion, doubling that. No, can you hear me? I'm sorry. You don't hear me now? Nobody can hear me? Then why don't I turn it over to you?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you now. So there you go. You're good.
But some of the things that we had to deal with, I was just talking about the budget. We much prefer the Senate version. But some of the things that we had to deal with in the House is a complete repeal of all the voting rights initiatives that we advanced 2 years ago. The photo ID, removing that requirement, the drop boxes for absentee ballots, no excuse absentee voting, repealing same-day voter registration. All those things were in the House voted to be repealed, but fortunately they were killed in the Senate. They took us backwards on minimum wage as well too, trying to cap minimum wage at $11 when it's currently scheduled for $15 an hour. They must have introduced 15 or 20 bills to repeal the progress we made on gun violence prevention. And as you know, the governor was right out of the box with his first executive order, was making a critical race theory, prohibiting that to be taught in schools, even though we know it's not being taught in schools. And of course, his second one had to do with the mask mandates. A couple of things I do hope we get into is the constitutional amendments that unfortunately did not pass. And that was primarily because of the House issue as well, too. And I'm going to stop because we can also talk. Let's leave us time for questions about marijuana. And I know we all want to talk about the commanders. So I'll go ahead and stop there and hand it off to my colleague, Delegate Lopez.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight on this very rainy night. I have represented the South Island for over a decade now, and I'm very proud to be a member of the Commerce Committee and also the Ag and Chesapeake Bay and Natural Resources Committee, as well as the ranking member on the Communications Technology and Innovation Committee. And then also I'm very proud to be the Democratic whip, as well as a member of the senior leadership team for the House Democratic Caucus. And I cannot echo strongly enough what Patrick said in terms of the choices that are so stark between the Senate Democratic budget and the House Republican budget. You're talking about $270 million for K through 12 support positions versus basically zero for K through 12 support positions. $200 million for at-risk schools versus a Republican budget that has zero for at-risk schools. $190 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which I care deeply about, in new funding relative to zero in new funding for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the House Republican budget. $27 million for gun violence prevention versus I think it's 5 in the Senate or the House Republican version. Real pay increases for mental health care workers versus token pay increases, and then a refundable earned income tax credit on the House side. I mean on the Senate Democratic side versus nothing on the House Republican side. We have been playing defense all session long, and Patrick touched upon this, but there were dozens of truly out there far right pieces of legislation that took us backwards, not only from sensible gun violence prevention, but to LGBTQ plus issues, to education, to the environment, everything from repealing RGGI and the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative to taking not a scalpel, but a sledgehammer to the Virginia Clean Economy Act, rolling back criminal justice reforms, rolling back racial equity issues. It was pretty stark what we were dealing with on the House side. And I'm very proud of the fact that the House Democrats stood firm. And I'm incredibly proud of what the Senate did as that firm, wall against a lot of these bills that got out of the House on, partisan, votes, 52-48. Thank God the Senate Democrats were there to hold the line on the vast majority of what came over from the House. And so I'm very proud of the work that we were able to do this year. We were still able to get a significant number of bills passed that, even though they weren't the kind of sweeping pieces of legislation that I think we really wanted to get done, there were still fairly strong successes, from healthcare to education, economic security, the environment, some civil rights issues. One bill that I had that I'm very proud of is remove the word alien or illegal alien from the Virginia State Code, which has been termed basically a racial slur. And we're still waiting on whether or not the governor's going to sign it or not. But I'm very proud of that civil rights issue that we passed. And also something that I'm, as you all know on this call, I've worked many years now on affordable housing issues. And in relation to things that were happening in not just the Serrano apartments here in Northern Virginia or up off of Columbia Pike, but also some significant problems we've had with the landlord-tenant issues and affordable housing issues across Virginia. I had several bills to address strengthening tenants' protections against retaliatory evictions, and clarifying the duty of landlords to maintain fit habitable standards in rental units, creating a legal remedy when renters are forced to vacate because the building has been condemned, incorporating basic housing livability standards into the state building code, prohibiting housing discrimination based on immigration status, basic things. And each of those bills were defeated by the Republican majority in the House. And what's fascinating, though, is the creating a legal remedy when renters are forced to vacate a condemned building because of the negligence of the landlord created a rebuttable presumption that for the tenant against the landlord, and also allowed them to get 3 months rent. Because if a building is condemned, it didn't just happen. If it's to deem that it was because of negligence by the landlord. And so that passed out of the House subcommittee in general laws, and it passed out of the full general laws committee. And then the day it was supposed to be voted on the floor, the Republicans took a bill that I did, or that bill, a bill by Sia Price and a bill by Michelle Maldonado, all on tenants' rights and affordable housing issues, and referred them all right back to committee, essentially killing them without even a debate on the floor. And so that's what we're dealing with in the House right now. A fundamentally different majority that is several of them are strong MAGA hat wearing Trump supporters, and they have a fundamentally different view about public policy and moving Virginia forward than we do. And so I'm very proud of the work we did. I'm very proud of the work that Patrick did on so many issues and that the Senate did. I look forward to your questions, and thank you all. So many friends on this call. Thank you all for all the work you've done over the years, not only in our community, but also across the Commonwealth in terms of getting out the vote and working to get good Democrats elected across the state. And I know this is supposed to be nonpartisan, but sorry about that. And I hand it over to Senator Corhola.
It is my turn, right?
This is certainly, but Alfonso, this is certainly partisan. I'm hosting this as a Democrat, so go ahead, be partisan. We understand. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you to all those who are listening in, and to the great organizers. We do appreciate your work every day. Elections matter, and you folks have understood that and really internalized it. And an example of why elections matter is the fact that the Senate is still in Democratic hands, the state Senate. We have 21 Democrats to 19 Republicans. It's not a large majority there. And I am the whip, and I have to work on every vote. So it's challenging. But we did make a commitment to defeat bills in committee because we have such a small majority on the floor. And the way we organized our committees, we do have on our major committees where I would say a lot of transformational legislation comes through. We have a healthy Democratic majority, and it's a good thing. It was mentioned that there were some voter suppression bills that came through. There were a lot of voter suppression bills that passed the House. We were able to defeat them in privileges and elections. And by the way, my colleague, Senator Eben, just became chair of that committee midway through the session. I chair the Rehabilitation and Social Services Committee, which covers the management of our jails and prisons, along with a number of other subject areas. And of course, we had bills that were intended to repeal the great work we had done during the last special session on criminal justice reform. We had passed measures on credit sentencing and more rehabilitative programming in our jails, and programs that would enable folks to really re-enter society. And, we always get bills that are intended to remove or deplete the effectiveness of those programs. And it's discouraging, and that there clearly is a philosophical difference on many areas related to criminal justice reform. In some areas, surprisingly, we have some Republican support. The Koch brothers, for example, are very interested in reducing some prison sentences. So anyways, that's an interesting dynamic. I just wanted to point that out. I guess the big thing that we can really point to as making a huge difference is the Senate was able to defeat the nomination of Andrew Wheeler to be the Secretary of Natural Resources. And that was a big deal. I do credit you and a lot of other activists who sent us emails. I received over 500 emails on that nomination alone, and emails that were rich with information on the kinds of things that Mr. Wheeler did when he was a Trump official. He worked in the Trump administration and EPA. So that was very helpful. We all had to, stand together on that, and it made a huge difference. This whole intersection of moving the ball forward on making a difference with our climate policies and doing sound environmental policies. So much of those policies have a significant intersection with implementation. And it really matters who's overseeing the regulatory process, who is willing to apply either incentives or penalties to get businesses to do the right thing. We had a bill that the House Majority Leader carried. It obviously made it out of the House, came to the Senate, and it would have just removed Virginia's participation in RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative Program, which, by the way, is a carbon market program. And last year, Virginia earned $228 million on that program. And that money was targeted by law, by statute, to flood control prevention and other climate mitigation strategies. So
low income efficiency, energy efficiency. It was amazing.
Yes, that was in the statute as well. So why somebody would want to remove us from RGGI when you're getting that kind of investment back is just mind-boggling. And of course now we're entering into a special session, and there's about a $3 billion difference between the House budget and the Senate budget. And all of that, or for the most part of it, it's in education, and it's in human services, and it's in the tax cut area. And, in education, the Senate budget gives teachers a 10% raise over the biennium. And the House budget gives teachers an 8% raise over the biennium. Big difference. The Senate budget actually relaxes the cap on school support personnel. The House budget does not, and that was the top priority of our school superintendents. And something that's very important to me in the healthcare area is, some of you may not know, but when the federal public health emergency actually expires, there are many people who are currently receiving Medicaid and public assistance through our insurance programs that will no longer be eligible for that support. They will have to reapply. And the Senate budget has language that sets up a whole process for that reapplication. There's a task force. The information would have to be disseminated to all of our recipients. When you think about it, every Medicaid recipient will have to reapply. Everybody who's getting some type of medical assistance or support as a result of the COVID federal dollars will have to reapply. And I don't want people to fall through the cracks. This is not the time to have to grow our uninsured population. It's never the time to grow it, but particularly now. So I really hope that Senate language stays. The Senate budget increases reimbursement under our Medicaid dental program significantly. The House budget gives just a little bit of a bump. The Senate budget has targeted low-income tax credits, and the House budget does not. So you're sort of getting a flavor. Budgets reflect your values, they reflect your priorities, and they reflect the vision you have for the state. I believe the Senate budget has a vision that it's a much more shared prosperity and a budget that's compassionate yet willing to provide some targeted tax relief in areas that, again, will help Virginia's struggling families. We'll see what happens. Lastly, I will say I had some successes because I tackled areas that were pretty bipartisan. I did pass a bill that will expedite medical licensure processes. So doctors in surrounding states through a reciprocal agreement can actually expedite their medical license to practice in Virginia. And I extended that to mental health professionals where we do have a dearth of mental health professionals. I worked with Delegate Tran, got a bill through to allow foreign licensed teachers to be able to teach in our classrooms under a provisional 3-year license, which is great. I did have a bill that regulated the payment of medical debt, which was much needed. And it was, let's just say it was a comprehensive bill and it took a lot of time and thought and energy to get it through, but it did pass. And then finally, not my last bill, but the only one I'm going to highlight is some of you may be aware that in the substance abuse area, the concept of recovery homes is a community-based concept where individuals can go, it's a housing model, and they can live with other individuals who are recovering from substance abuse use and or substance abuse disorders. And hopefully they can get their lives on a more productive track. But these recovery homes have had very few requirements regarding consumer information and actually credentialing requirements. So my bill takes the whole concept of recovery homes to a new level and brings a lot of consumer protection to that whole industry. So that was a great bill to get passed. Oh, and I do want to mention one thing that the sheriffs are very happy about. So I don't want you to think that the Democrats in any way ignored public safety and our needs of those who are in law enforcement. I have a transfer of custody bill that we expect the governor to sign, which allows the state to actually enter into an alternative transportation contract. So we don't always have law enforcement folks driving individuals in the middle of a mental health crisis to a healthcare provider. These individuals are under a temporary detention order. They're really suffering, and to have them be driven by law enforcement when they're, behind a shield in a car and having all the, I think, rather traumatic experiences associated with being, in a law enforcement kind of condition should be removed if at all possible. So these alternative transport providers will free up the time of law enforcement, and the state would also be responsible for hiring security and allowing hospitals to access these security personnel while they're in the waiting room. So police officers don't have to stay in the waiting room with individuals. So it's sort of a technical, complicated bill, but a bill that was very necessary, and we'll see what happens. I will conclude at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to your questions. And I will say, let me just add one more thing. This was not the year for any campaign finance reform. All of our campaign finance reform bills saw defeat in the House. So that was an interesting sort of demarcation line. It was mentioned that the gun safety prevention legislation that we passed in 2020, there were a lot of bills to unravel those protections. And again, we defeated them in the Senate. So I can't think of another real major thing I could bring up, but I could obviously keep talking because there's a lot to share. I don't want to forget anything that somebody might be interested in, So I'll be quiet and let you pick your topics and then we'll respond accordingly. But I do thank you for your attention.
Thanks, everyone. So I guess, so I do have one question that I received just on an individual basis in the chat. And I can start off with that one. It's from somebody who didn't want to, a participant who didn't want to give her name, but it sounds like she's been having some problems with the Virginia Employment Commission, the Virginia Housing Assistance Fund, and some other service agencies. And it sounds like she might have already been in contact with some of your offices. Is there, I mean, is there, how is this like a widespread problem, or are a lot of people having problems with these agencies? Is there anything that can be done?
Very much so. This is something, oh, go for it, Barbara.
Well, I'll just say this is something I think, Alfonso, you're well aware of and certainly contributed to. In 2021, we added a considerable amount of money to the Virginia Employment Commission, enough so 30 additional analysts could be hired, and we put money in to upgrade the computer systems. Surprisingly enough, Virginia is 49th out of 50 in terms of getting money back from the federal government to actually run the Virginia unemployment program. We have struggled. There is no question we have struggled, but I'm hoping that somehow we can get through this backlog and make whatever corrections need to be made so those who are really owed some back payments can receive it.
So just to piggyback on what Barbara just said right there, the problems of the Virginia Employment Commission are a direct result of significant underfunding over the last 2 decades. All right, and the fact that the computer systems are ancient. And then you lost staff when it became a significant problem right when the pandemic began. And so that was a snowball that just built on itself and built on itself. And so you saw record delays in folks who were trying to get support from the VEC to answer their questions, to get checks sent, to fix problems. And we've been working night and day to address that. And we were able to address it fairly effectively with what Barbara was mentioning in over the last couple of years, but we're still seeing improvements that need to be made. And right now they're finally upgrading the computer systems with the money we were able to allocate.
The only thing I'll add to that, to the questionnaire, if they're still on listening, is to make sure you contact your delegate or your senator and keep them posted, and they can put it in inquiry to find out where you are in the queue. And sometimes that can get you to the top of the list, but keep trying.
If that's okay, Rachel, thank you. My name is Alyssa. I know a number of people on this call, and that's why I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it's me.
You shouldn't be.
I have a company, I have a small business, and so I was on something called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. A number of your staff have kind of tried to help. I'm a constituent of Alfonso Lopez, and almost every week, Kevin tells me I will hear from someone by Friday, and if not, please let him know. I do every week, and he tries. So this is not, I'm not trying to criticize anyone's staff for lack of trying. The process is not fixed. I don't know why. And perhaps it's because there are systems that are outdated and need to be updated. But I certainly look forward to that being rectified, because for me, it's really tough to want to go back to work when I can, when this is almost a full-time job to try to backtrack and provide the records and the data that they keep changing and asking for. So thank you for listening to that. Thank you.
No, we're so sorry you're going through this, Alyssa. Yeah. But understand though that there are unfortunately there are so many people in the Commonwealth that are going through the same thing you're going through right now, and so this is the one thing over the last 2.5 years that each of our offices have been dealing with, I think, more than any other constituent service issue. Yeah. We pride ourselves on being exceptionally strong constituent service providers. And this is actually a heartbreaking process, because there are people in really dire straits who need this help. And the fact that this opaque process is being hamstrung by computer systems, lack of staff, is really heartbreaking.
We will
All
continue.
right.
We will continue to work on your behalf.
So would anyone else like to bring up a question? I can perhaps if you'd use the raise hand function, I can call on you, or if you're just really bold, just shout it right out.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand right now. So I'm not really bold.
And here I am. I made you the co-host.
Oh, you did? Didn't know that. Okay.
I get it.
Hi, how are you doing? So I was, of course, I do some restoration of rights, and I was very disappointed about the restoration of rights amendment. And so I was trying to figure out, this is in the category of elections matter. So I used to be able to call up the restoration of rights office. And so I went on the website, and there's no phone number anymore on the website. So I wrote them an email and nobody's answered it. I'm trying to figure out what the governor is currently doing. Do you have any suggestions about how to get the governor's office to respond to a question about whether the policy has changed about restoration of rights, whether they're doing it directly out of, when people leave prison, whether they're working on it at all? I mean, I just have no idea how to go about this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I assume that's the Secretary of the Commonwealth that you're talking about there. And I don't know what the transition is like, and I can't tell you what, I mean, there's going to have a different philosophy in terms of approving some of these applications. That's no question about that. But I can't tell you what their procedure is. I can't tell you what their protocol will be. We can make an inquiry, but I'm not familiar with it. The transition is probably a big part of that, but I would not expect there to be a lot of approvals at the same rate that we had seen in the past.
And I think that the constitutional amendment didn't come out of the Senate. Is that right?
Out of the House.
No, it came out of the Senate. It didn't come out of the House.
Okay. Okay. It went
But
to,
but it has to pass, of course, each chamber. It has to pass 2 sessions consecutively with a election in between before it goes on the ballot for the voters. This is something we need to work on. Nearly every other state has this automatic restoration of rights once an individual has done his time and is released from prison. There is no reason to not fully restore all civil rights
Exactly.
in a civilized society.
I mean, we're one of 4 states that still have this on the books. And the fact that we still have this remnant of the segregationist bird machine policies on our books is really, upsetting and offensive.
thank you.
More questions? If nobody asks a question, I'm going to ask about bylaws.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Can I bring up something?
I want somebody to put a question in here, or I'll just start talking. There are a couple things.
Yeah, exactly. We can talk about the commanders. We can talk about predatory towing, the work that we've been doing on that issue. Any questions you guys have?
Let's talk about the commanders. I have a question for you,
Oh,
Delegate Lopez and Senator Favola. How are you going to vote when that bill comes at a conference?
I am not supporting it I'm not supporting the bill.
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, the argument that's being made in the Senate by the proponents sort of revolves around the fact that the state will not be at risk. Our bond rating will not in any way be affected. We will be getting, revenue from the bonds, and we're really helping economic development, and we're going to get a VRE station. That's the argument pro. But I think the argument against is much more compelling. I really don't see how we manage the traffic, which is already very, very heavy on 395 and the whole, can you imagine the route going down to Prince William being complicated, you know, by these games, and excessive development that that has not really been planned for, nor do we have the infrastructure in place, the transportation infrastructure in place to support it. There are a lot of concerns about the owner, Mr. Snyder, and his behavior, and you know, the fact that he has a lot of personal wealth and he has not been an ideal citizen, and certainly not a worthy partner for state support. So, and to be honest, I have not received any emails in support of the stadium. I have received many emails in opposition. Now, they were outside my district, but that's okay. I'm acting not just for my district, but on behalf of the Commonwealth. I haven't received any in support of the stadium, so I'd be interested in hearing what you all.
Well, I've been very adamant about this. Billionaires who wanted to build stadiums in other parts of the country have done it on their own dime. We should not be spending public dollars for a billionaire who doesn't need the money. And I can't echo strongly enough what Barbara said in terms of no planning. The traffic issues are going to be catastrophic. The soonest we're going to get the transit and the VRE lines is around 8 to 10 years. So picture, if you will, 8 to 10 years of significant traffic bottlenecks along the corridor that is already a problem. And then on top of that, everything Barbara said about going into business with someone who's a pariah amongst the other owners in the NFL. And then on top of that, this is only, if you're lucky, 16 to 18 games a year. It's not like you're building a baseball stadium where you've got 80 plus games happening in an average year. And then we saw a poll. All right, I'm voting no on that single choice stadium, yes or no? No, all right. But the idea is that the economic development benefits are really pie in the sky. There's nothing that they've really set up that says this is definitely going to happen. And in most cases, in other parts of the country, they haven't seen these kind of benefits, especially with a football stadium compared to a baseball stadium that has considerably more foot traffic. And so I'm going to vote no. I'm going to speak out strongly against this. And the last point, and I hope you'll hear me out here, $360 million of funding or bonds or whatever we're going to put into it. I know it's not general fund revenue, but $360 million, I know of other things we could use $360 million for. All right, affordable housing, social safety net, education, school construction, transit. I know it's not general fund dollars. I know it's bond authority, but I want the focus to be on the social safety net, the least of these, and making sure that we're lifting everybody up and leaving nobody behind, not on giving money to a billionaire who doesn't need the money.
All right, I'm going to close the poll in a few seconds. Anybody else wants to vote, please go ahead.
Oh, wow, there's a poll going on with this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's hopefully it popped up for everybody. But sorry if I've disenfranchised anyone.
Well, this is real-time constituent feedback.
Yeah.
It really is.
We really like this. We'll do whatever you tell us to do in this poll.
All right, well, the answer is actually pretty clear. All right, I'm going to close it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, so
Oh my.
Oh,
it is 100%, or at least of those who voted. Maybe some folks, maybe all the people who wanted the stadium didn't vote anyway. So there you go. That's the poll.
All right. We'll
Right.
do what you tell us.
there you go.
All right, we got to manufacture another question. Someone asked.
Well, there was a question in chat about predatory towing.
Yeah, talk about towing. I'll think of a good poll about towing.
Sure. I had one bill, HB 1218, which got a lot of love from folks in Northern Virginia, but not from folks in the rest of the state. It would have ensured that towing is generally enforceable through the provisions of the Virginia Consumer Protection Act,
Right.
and would have clarified that the Office of the Attorney General's Civil Investigative Demand Authority it exists in these matters. The bill also made changes to ensure that courts can impose meaningful civil penalties, not just limited to Northern Virginia, and to allow for individual enforcement of prohibited practices rather than solely through the Attorney General. People don't know this, but right now, under our state code, to get a judgment against a predatory towing company in the Planning District 8, which is Northern Virginia, it has to come from the Attorney General. You can't do this Consumer Protection Act and do it just from an attorney. And so, I got to tell you, in South Arlington, the complaints I hear are at least 2 or 3 a week. And what's interesting, this is going to sound funny, but the Saturday before I had this bill up in subcommittee, my car was towed off of Columbia Pike. I was at the Acme Pie shop getting a pie for a big family dinner. And my wife and my son were there, my little 4-year-old, and we're parking in Fillmore. And the signage there is like, if you're in Fillmore, you can park there. The problem is that it's not clear that the end unit closest to the Cinema Draft House, where Acme Pie is, they only have 8 parking spaces behind the building, not in the big parking lot near Fillmore, where Cecilia's used to be. And so anybody who parks there, and there were spotters in a big black SUV calling the folks to come out. And we were in that store, Acme Pie, for 7 minutes. And we came out, and in 7 minutes, our car was gone. It is a well-oiled machine. And there we go. I love this. A new poll. I love it.
I'm not really a survey researcher, but just for
Whoever's
fun.
the pollster is an amazing pollster.
I want to vote for both.
Yes, both of them.
Anyway, sorry,
So-
continue. I'll close it in about 30
No,
seconds.
that was it. That was it. I just I understand. I've met with the owner a couple times now, and I understand where he's coming from. I understand what he's dealing with the county, but I also think that the idea that the only way you can sue a company for truly predatory towing practices is if you engage the Attorney General's office, only in Planning District 8, only in Northern Virginia, that's wrong. And I don't see a problem with involving or expanding this to include the Virginia Consumer Protection Act and allowing attorneys to do it that way.
We never saw that bill, I guess.
No, you didn't. It never got out of the Republican-controlled committee.
Yeah. Wasn't there a bit, wasn't Chap Peterson, my colleague, didn't he represent advanced towing in a?
He did.
Well, I guess this is something we're going to have to continue to work on. It would be helpful if we had regional support, the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. This would be helpful if, they took it on, because the towing model is sort of based on these regions, and we are in Region 8. So, getting Fairfax and Loudoun, Prince William, Falls Church, Alexandria City to, come up with a proposed legislative package on towing would be helpful, I think.
The owner has offered to sit down and talk about a legislative solution going forward. So I'm going to take him up.
Yeah, I think we can make some headway. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that if in fact advanced towing is following the rules, and we can come up with some reasonable solutions, I think we can maybe make some headway.
The problem
I've
is
got a
they're
solution.
following.
It's
the-
An
Sorry.
advanced towing stadium.
Yeah.
That'll
Oh my God.
With all the money they're making, we could probably afford
Stadium.
$1 billion.
I
Oh,
think
God.
Dan Snyder and Advanced Towing are 2 peas in a pod. They're both criminals. I hope this is being recorded.
It is.
I feel that way. I feel that way. And you're right, Alfonso. They are predators. They have spotters that are watching and waiting for people to park there. And it should be criminal. It should be criminal what they do.
Well, moving on, before we all speak too frankly on video,
Yes, I have a
would
couple
someone
of
like
com-
to bring up something about affordable housing in South Arlington?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We have four in the 49th district. We have four of the poorer communities inside the Beltway, and they are all within 2 to 8 minutes of HQ2, Amazon's new headquarters on South Beach Street. And in the years since Amazon has come in, you have seen rents and property taxes skyrocket. And I am not stretching the truth when I tell you I have had friends of mine who are in their 80s who live in Arlington Mill and Green Valley call me up and say, crying, that they don't know what they're going to do about their property taxes because they've gone up so high, and they bought their home and paid for it when it was $19,000 in 1957. And now they're paying 5 figures or 4 figures a year in terms of property taxes, and it's going up and up and up. And then people who are renting, God forbid you're renting anywhere close to Crystal City, your rents are skyrocketing. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that we took the Affordable Housing Trust Fund from around $6 million when it was first created in 2013 to around $125.7 million today. And I'm also very proud of the fact that working with the Senate and the House, when we had the majority, we were able to work closely with Governor Northam's office to create the mortgage and rental relief program that took advantage of the $524 million we got from the CARES Act funding from the feds. And using the $125.7 million we had from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, that was the backstop to support the mortgage and rental relief program. And here's the factoid that I'm incredibly proud of, and that's that this factoid, and it makes me incredibly proud. Let me say proud another time. Proud. The number of evictions in 2020 were significant in the heart of the pandemic, were significantly less than in 2019. Let me repeat that. In 2020, we had significantly fewer evictions in the heart of the pandemic than we did in 2019. And that was a result of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the mortgage and rental relief program working. Now, we still have all of these issues that I mentioned in the beginning about tenant and landlord issues, about warranties of habitability, about basic tenant rights that are not existing in some low-income housing situations, not just along Columbia Pike and South Arlington, but all across the Commonwealth. And so what I find myself having to do a lot of the time is to argue that we should be balancing the scales of justice, as it were, between tenants and landlords. And I'm very proud of the work that the delegation has done here in Arlington to support affordable housing, the work the delegation has done to support some of the bills that all of us have put forward when it comes to tenant and landlord rights. And, I have been in the media and online talking about everything going on with, these issues that pop up all the time along the Columbia Pike corridor. And, we have one of the most diverse populations in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. There we are, the world in a zip code, 22204, world in a zip code, over 100 languages spoken. And, people are vulnerable. And some of these contracts that they sign that have a fixed rent for, a period of time, maybe for a year, and then more importantly, more insidiously, it'll say, well, you have a year lease, but after a year, it reverts to month. And then if it's only a month-to-month lease, according to the statewide statute that's been in place since before 2005, you've got folks who only have essentially 30 days to find a new place to live once the developer decides to evict everybody because they're going to redevelop the property. Now, if they had a year-long lease, they'd have 3 months to find a new place to live. But if you are a family that has English as a second language, and you're not making a lot of money, and you've made a home for maybe 15, 20 years in an apartment where it's really a month-to-month lease, that's cruel. That's a horrific situation for a family to be in. And I am working tooth and nail with Kevin Salcedo, who's on this call as my chief of staff, to address a lot of these issues, to put in new legislation next year to fix this problem. But we have a lot of our neighbors and friends who are hurting and who are going through these kinds of problems. And it's not happening in Richmond or Petersburg or Galax or Grundy. It's happening in our neighborhood. It's happening in one of the wealthiest, most highly educated communities in the entire world, not just the country, the entire world. And we can do better.
We have made progress, though, in terms of rent protection laws. I know a few years ago, I did get a bill passed working with Delegate Bulova and others to ensure that on any eviction notice, a hotline has to be recorded, and the local neighborhood legal services needs to be listed. So a tenant knows how to access legal help. We also, this past session, Delegate Price had a bill. I had carried the companion in the Senate and decided that it was better off to let the House bill have wings. But under Delegate Price's bill, it articulates the fact that the county, under severe conditions, and after having made attempts with the landlord to remedy some very egregious living conditions, the county can take the landlord to court over these conditions. Now, the county obviously has this authority now, but this bill really articulates to the landlords that there is an expectation that we're going to have certain health and safety standards met, period. And if they're not, then the county really does have an obligation to act. So again, the bill is it's another tool in the toolbox. The county can decide if and when it's going to use it, but it is a very strong message to landlords. We did pass in the Senate budget. I don't know what will happen in the House, but we are creating pilots across the Commonwealth for affordable home ownership. Now, we are targeting those pilots in neighborhoods that are both low income and have high proportions of immigrants / populations of color. So we'll see how that goes, but it is a home ownership pilot. And I know for a fact that the Housing Authority, the Virginia Housing Authority, has been working. Susan Dewey for years was the executive director of the Housing Authority, and I believe she still is, but maybe Alfonso, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is Susan Dewey still the executive director of the Virginia Housing Authority? I think she is, right? She has worked very closely with Arlington. She understands that the cost of land is high. She understands that Arlington needs to look at different models, maybe single room occupancy, maybe some other models to bring the cost of housing down per family or per household. And we have been successful in getting, a good share of state tax credits flowing to Arlington for the creation of affordable housing. So this is not an easy topic. And remember, the people building the housing, we do not have a housing authority in the county. So the people building the housing are in the private sector. And they're either nonprofit providers like APA or the Arlington Housing Corporation, or they're private builders who are usually doing a larger development, and the county negotiates affordable housing units. So we have to keep a lot of tools in the toolbox so the county can, maybe provide additional density, maybe provide ongoing subsidies to the families, maybe, buy down a portion of the property which was the housing of low to moderate income units would be. Maybe use public property. We've got affordable housing over a fire station on Wilson Boulevard. We've had 2 church models where.
Alien place.
Yes, and the Clarendon Baptist Church, where I'm pretty sure it's Baptist Church right near the metro, where there's affordable housing above the church. So we've got to do more, but we've been creative. And I really encourage folks, if you care about this topic, to work with the Affordable Housing Commission and to also engage your county board members as much as possible, because whatever they tell us they need, we will try to deliver from Richmond. We want to be a strong partner on this.
Right. And the county did amazing work years ago to create the form-based code and work along on the Columbia Pike corridor to say that, like, if we'll give you greater density if you can set aside affordable housing in whatever you're building. So yeah.
And I just want to say, Arlington, I believe, is still the only jurisdiction in the entire metro region and in Nova that has a county-funded housing trust fund. So that's really important. I remember when I was on the Arlington County Board, putting a significant amount of money into the housing trust fund simply so we could supplement state and federal dollars in a way to really buy down those units.
Yeah.
Alyssa, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, kind of embarrassed to ask, but I've advocated to the county board as well. For me, it seems I purchased my home when I was high income. I'm now very low income to AMI. It seems that there's not a whole lot of effort in the state or the county to keep people in their homes that are no longer affordable, if that makes sense. So you probably won't have any ideas or solutions, but I just wanted to at least mention it. There's a lot of assistance to help low income people find housing, to first-time home buyers to buy housing, committed affordable units. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund helps people who are renters. There's just there's a little bit of a gap. Obviously, I'm one of those people, or I wouldn't know about it. But there seems to not be an effort for that to exist. So there were American Rescue Plan funds. I tried to advocate. I was told by my head counselor that there was a large gap. I just wanted to mention that so that it's at least somewhere on the back burner of everyone's heads as you're thinking of your constituents. Thank you.
No, that's a fair point. Thank you for bringing it up. I mean, the county does have a pretty aggressive eviction prevention program, but that's all targeted towards renters.
Yeah.
And you're a homeowner. So So that's a different slice, which
and the rent and mortgage relief money ran out. There were a certain class of borrowers that weren't eligible for mortgage relief, those of us who had traditional loans, because it means that our loans were eligible for forbearance. So the people who had the low income loans to begin with were able to get help. All those of us who were high income at one point and had a regular loan with no outside assistance, purchased a property on our own, weren't able to. So thank you.
Got it. All right. Well, I will certainly think about that. It's an important issue.
So a final question. So, we've gone through redistricting, and you all have been redistricted. You all have, you're all in new districts that maybe you'll have to run in this year, next year, who knows? So what do you know about or think you know about your new districts? What do you want to know? And what do you want your new constituents to know about you?
I'll take that first because I think my district's probably the most changed. Right now I have 26, I represent 26 precincts in Arlington, but I have a tail in my district that goes up the Potomac River. So I have 16 precincts in Fairfax, all in the McLean area, again, near the Potomac River. And I have 6 precincts in Loudoun, again, right nestled next to the Potomac. Donald Trump's golf course is in the Loudoun portion of my district. So I represent three jurisdictions, portions of 3 jurisdictions, and I have a very long tail. And under the Supreme Court redraw of the districts, my entire Senate district will be in Arlington. So that'll be a significant change in terms of travel time. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure the issues are going to change that much. But I'm looking forward to it. Of course, I served on the Arlington County Board for 14 years before I ran for the Senate. And I ran for the Senate in 2011. I was on the Arlington County Board in 1997. So I feel like I'm coming home, and I'm very excited. So that'll be my new district, and it'll be called District 40 come 2023.
The 49th district is changing. It's the lion's share of the 49th district is going to be in something now called the 3rd district. And as opposed to me having, or me representing, hopefully a district that has a lot of Arlington and a little bit of Fairfax, now I'll have a lot of Arlington and a little bit of Alexandria. And so it's basically everything from Route 50 south in Arlington, but nothing to the east of 395. So I no longer have Southeast Street and Amazon and National Landing and Crystal City. But it's basically everything east of or west of 395, south of Route 50, and then it has approximately 5.5, 6 precincts in Alexandria, from Chinkapin to Park Fairfax and the North Slope or North Ridge, right there behind the Masonic Temple. So I grew up in Alexandria when we first came back to the United States when I was very young from overseas, and it'll be fun. I have a great number of friends who are elected officials in Alexandria, and the mayor was in my wedding. But I hope that they know I'm very passionate about these issues that matter to all of us in the General Assembly. I hope they know that I've been fighting for the environment and renewable energy for several years. I was the founder of the Virginia Environment and Renewable Energy Caucus. I'm very proud of the work I've done on immigration issues and social justice issues, and a lot of immigration issues that I've worked on, including getting the Virginia Dream Act passed and getting things like the legislation passed to no longer have, if you can't pay your court fines or fees, that you're not allowed to have your driver's license back. That affected around 660,000 people in Virginia. I carried the House version of that bill. So I think what people know about me is that I fight hard, and I'm strident, and I get really involved in getting good legislation passed, and I am trying to make sure that we have the majority, and that I'll be a fighter for the 3rd district. Hand it off to Patrick.
And yeah, and so my district is going from the 47th into the 1st, and I'm picking up 5 or 6 precincts from Delegate Sullivan. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has drawn him out of Arlington. And so my district has now moved entirely in North Arlington. And so it'll push me up into North and West, and I'll hug the Potomac up in the north and western part of the county. I think I want my new constituents to know, well, first my old constituents to know that I'm giving those over to Delegate Lopez, that they're getting a great delegate in Delegate Lopez. And I want my new constituents to know that I'm going to knock on their door in the next year or two. So don't be surprised when they see me at their door. But certainly looking forward. I mean, I'm glad that my district remains in Arlington. Of course, looking forward to meeting new constituents and working hard for them like we always have. The wonderful thing about the Arlington delegation is that we are all share one another. And I think all of us sort of feel like all of Arlington, we all can help our constituents. And I think we do that in venues like this and other venues throughout the county, that we can represent all of Arlington values. There's no real divide between the North and the South. We're all one Arlington. And so looking forward to continue to be Arlington's voice with my colleagues in the General Assembly.
I just want to add, just so you have the complete picture, the precincts currently represented now, which would be, I guess, the Fairlington precinct, with Elizabeth Bennett Parker, Delegate Elizabeth Bennett Parker. She is drawn out of the Arlington map as well. So her precincts, I would expect, Alfonso, you're picking up those for the most.
Abington, Shirlington, and Fairlington, right? Yeah.
Oh, right. So you're going to pick up the precincts currently represented by Elizabeth Bennett Parker. And we do have a new district. There would be room for 3 delegates. You're talking to 2 of them, Patrick Hope and Alfonso Lopez. And then there's an open district, and it's sort of a strange one. It's got a little bit of, Lion Park, and it snakes into Roslyn and then comes around to Crystal City. It's Delegate District 2. So so that's open. So there'll be a primary, and you'll have a new representative. And Janet Howell's districts will be moved into my new district, and Adam Eben, I think, will have very few precincts in Arlington. So we shrink from 7 representatives, folks, that 7 people currently have a portion of Arlington, and come 2023, you will have 5 representatives, 3 delegates, myself as a senator, and Adam Eben as a senator. Senator Eben with just a few precincts. So I hope that sort of gives you a lay of the land.
Alfonso, you now represent my precinct, Glen Carlin, and I'm going to give you the secret to winning Glen Carlin. So every couple of years, every couple of years, the county suggests closing the Glen Carlin Library, and that's what gets everybody out into the street with like torches and pitchforks. So although I realize the state has nothing to do with it, if you come out of the Glen Carlin Library supporter, you'll win all of us.
I'm going to come with pitchforks and stand right beside you on that.
Anyway, there's your key issue. I don't charge anything for that.
It's a beautiful neighborhood.
Does anyone else have any questions?
There was a question in the chat, and I tried to respond very quickly about when these changes will take place. There is a court case still pending. It was with a federal circuit judge, and now it's back to a state. And that whole lawsuit argues that the House of Delegates should run in 2022. It does not affect the Senate. So the Senate stays until 2023. But I don't know what a judge will decide regarding whether the House runs in 2022. So that's still an open question. If the House does run in 2022, they'll also have to run in 2023 along with the Senate, because that's the next regularly scheduled election. So I just really want to remind folks that the 2023 elections are very critical. They're all local. State Senate is the top of the ticket. We usually don't get as much attention or buzz as, a federal election would, but absolutely critically important. Of the things that really impact your day-to-day life, the things that make a difference in the quality of your schools, things that make a difference in the safety net that is so important. All of those things really hinge on the people you elect, their values, and the fact that we need numbers to continue to move a progressive agenda forward. So I am going to help my colleagues in the House as much as I can, so the Democrats can take control of the House again. And I'm going to do my darndest to ensure that the Democrats in the Senate remain in control, that we don't slide back and lose any seats. We cannot lose 1 seat in the Senate, not one. If we go down to 20, then we're in the minority, because the lieutenant governor is Republican and would vote with the Republicans on an organizational vote. So we really do have our work cut out for us. So we're going to need you. And the other thing I will say, you seem to be a very lively group and interested in a lot of topics, which is great. each of us sends out a newsletter. Each of us has a website. Go to our website, sign up for our newsletters. We send information out regularly, and that's where you'll get the most timely information on issues that really matter to you. Okay, enough of my advertisements. And Arlington has the best delegation in the entire Commonwealth. Delegation that's smart, savvy, works well together, shares the same values, and knows how to get things done. So you should feel very blessed. All right, gentlemen, should
Thanks,
I say
everybody.
anything more?
Oh, you're doing
No,
great,
thank you,
Barbara. You're on
guys.
a roll.
I'm on a roll. Keep going.
Thank you, Rachel, for all you do. And thank you, everybody on the call, for all you do. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks
everyone.
everybody for coming.
Have a great
Been
week.
great.
Have a
Thank
good
you. Have a
evening.
great week.
Hope we
Bye-bye.
don't get another special
Bye.
session, or maybe you will. I don't know. I don't know how this works.
We will. We have to
It's
drop the
short.
budget, so we will.
See you
Thank
guys.
you all.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachel and
you.
Richard.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
And I'm going to inquire about how to actually get the recording of this and share it with people, with whoever needs it.